Good morning, traders. It is Wednesday, the 7th of January, 2026. We're starting to roll through the first month of the year, getting a little momentum built, I hope. Usually, at this first week or two of getting back in the groove, um, a lot of traders have taken time to go back and review performance from last year, review things that have made a difference for them, review things that maybe they need to work on at the start of the year. And then as things get rolling and gains and losses become center stage again, we tend to lose a little bit of that focus. So I thought one of the things we could do today is talk a little bit about that focus that's required and one of the things that can assist that. So, with that in mind, I want to go ahead and get right to work. Do want to remind you, though, that this Saturday, the 10th, is when I'm going to resume my regular weekly performance summary. And I've had a lot of questions about that because people tend to want to know, how well I'm doing because it's important for them to see in real time if, the things that we talk about in here or the things that I suggest that you acquire through a subscription to netwinningtrader.com. They want to know if that's really information that can help. And with that in mind, I thought today's quote to get us started would help us in both these areas. One of which is what's really out there to help me, and the whole issue of, let's not lose that important focus once we get into the daily grind of regular financial battle. So, with that in mind, I want to go ahead and give you today's quote to get us started. Here it is. Human beings who are almost unique in having the ability to learn from the experience of others are also remarkable for their apparent disinclination to do so. And that was written by Douglas Adams. For those of you who aren't familiar with him, he was a British author and humorist and was involved in writing behind the scenes in a couple of important British comedies from those who remember the 60s and 70s. Monty Python, I think he did have some time writing for them. But he is best well known for writing The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which, if those of you that are sci fi fans haven't read it, it's not really science fiction so much as it is a scathing rebuke of the method of thought that most people bring to the table when it comes to attempting to get through life. Um, in my opinion, it's something everybody should read. It's more humor than it is fiction, I think, but it's quite good, actually. Anyway, I think what's important for us to remember when we look at this particular quote is this: that human beings usually, we're the only beings that we know of that we coexist with on the planet that are capable of certain things. One of which is the use of tools and the creation of technology. You know, if I was a polar bear and knew what I knew as a human being, uh, I would build a fence around where the sea lions were because that's what I eat. I don't want to have to go chase those things unless I had to. Human beings, basically, that's what we did when it came to our most important thing that we do different than other creatures, and that is manipulate our food supply. We're the only species that combines and divides other kinds of available foodstuffs to us to create new foods. We're the only ones that do that. We cook. A cookbook is actually proof positive that there's something different going on in human beings than in other creatures that we inhabit the planet with. One of those things that is uniquely different is that we can look at somebody making a mistake that really ends up hurting them, and we can learn from that. Now, as children, that starts off in the physical realm. Don't put your hand on that hot stove. Don't do that. Why? Well, your brother did it, and look at his hand. Now, of course, what do? We go right ahead and put our hand on the stove and find out if that's really true. And then, of course, we have that problem of burning our hand again. And this is probably why most people never learn anything from those around us. Why Doug's second half of this quote, remarkable for their apparent disinclination to do so. Most of the time, when we're told don't do that because you will get hurt, that comes from somebody who knows that's the case. And we do it anyway, just to find out. So this is why history repeats itself. And this is one of the reasons why uh, human beings, of course, are never going to make any progress that's real and important progress on the issues of things like relationship and getting along and living with each other and things of that nature. We're never going to make any real progress on that until we stop ignoring the fact that we create all of our own problems and start resolving that instead of keep pushing it off onto the next generation. Um, how are we going to do that? Well, when it comes to trading, one of the things that we have a tendency to do is ignore those around us who have solved the problem. And what is our problem? We keep losing money. I've had many conversations with people that do not believe these statistics are true, which, of course, is plain and simple ignorance of being unable to learn from the experience of others. The statistics are 85% who have a trading account open today. I don't care who you are. If you are listening to this broadcast and have a trading account open, the fact is 85% of you are going to close that account at a loss. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. Go look it up. Now, how are you going to beat those odds? How are you going to beat those odds if you're doing the exact same thing everybody else is doing with the exact same tools that lead to those losses? Are you ignoring what you could learn from those around you? And the answer to that is, for the most part, you probably are. Now, you probably sat down at the beginning of the year and said, I want to make 2026 my best year ever. And you've got a game plan in place that you think is going to make all the difference. Did you run that game plan past anybody you compete with or that you value their point of view on? If you didn't, why is that? If you believe you're going to do better in the marketplace by exploiting this year better than you did last year, the exact same tools everybody else is using that don't work, ask yourself, why is that? Why do you believe you're going to do better by putting more time into education and training when everybody who's done that has never done any better anyway? Have you learned from that? Have you gone into the chat rooms and talked to 200 different traders last year, about their results using XYZ? And have you looked at their results? Have they shown you those results? And for the most part, they all want to talk about how great things are and how wonderful they are and how much money they make. But the fact is, they can't show you that in real time from one end, the beginning of the year till the end of the year, can they? And that's why I put out my performance summary every Saturday, is to show you every week, week after week after week, that the money's there to be made. And unless I do something stupid, which is what? Ignoring common sense, breaking my rules, all the things we're not supposed to do. Unless I do something stupid, my accounts grow on a regular basis all the time, almost week to week. Very rarely do I have a losing month. But the point is, why aren't we learning from the value that others can bring to the table? At netwinningtrader.com, an entire lifetime of my education experience is available for you to exploit for little to no cost, depending on what you get involved with. Everything. Jesse Livermore, who made $100 million in one day, back when $100 million was a lot of money, made it in one day, wrote a book, How to Trade Stocks. You think anybody reads that book anymore? No. I've read that book, and I'm like, jeez, wow, how come nobody does this? This is simple as the simplest thing I've ever seen in my life for trading equities, if you're so inclined to do so. Why don't people do that? You know why? Because of this right here. remarkable for their apparent disinclination to do so, meaning we don't want to learn from the experience of others. We think we got it all figured out. We think we know exactly what we're doing. Back off, world. I'm going to show you. Yeah? Ain't working so well, is it? I'm going to challenge you today to get off the merry-go-round. Ask yourself some hard questions. Are you learning from the experience of those around you? And in both ways. What works, what doesn't work? Are you learning that? If you're really not learning that from those around you, you need to consider doing that, because that's going to save you a huge amount of time, trouble, and effort, and it might put you on the right track to beating that 85% odds that are stacked against you. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. You need to look that up if you don't believe that. So that's the first thing I want you to think about. The other thing I want you to think about is the apparent disinclination to do so. You're heading into a brand new year with new opportunities. There's possibility that as this year develops, there's going to be some opportunities come our way to get disgustingly rich. I mean, big, big things. I don't know if you noticed the price of cattle lately, but cattle is near the all-time high that it's ever been. If the dollar devalues, the price of cattle could go even higher. But if the dollar begins to rally due to the benefits of the economic changes that we're seeing, and the fact that it's so high already, you could be looking at a top in cattle that might be there for years. Have you looked at it? Is that an opportunity for you? In any case, I want to encourage you to take a new look at this. It's a new year. We want to talk about common sense. I started Monday with the issue of common sense, and I want to follow through today with using the benefit of using common sense. One of the things that common sense will teach you is that you can learn from other people who screwed themselves over. You don't have to do that. Are you open to that as being a necessary ingredient to start 2026? Hardcore common sense applied to your method today to make sure that you don't end up blowing out in 2026. Let's hope you don't. All right, guys, that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow on Thursday. Have a great day. Thanks.